This is Klank Diolosa, and you're listening to Discography Discussion. Don't go anywhere or die.
And if your urban warfare is still suffering, then you are ready for this episode of Discography Discussion. I am Joe, that is Dan, that is Jeff, and this is Industrial December. We're talking about Klank tonight.
Oh yeah, get your loops ready, bitches.
Oh my god, not the loops. Anything but the loops.
Oh yeah.
I thought he said lube.
No.
Sorry, my bad.
It's probably your internet connection.
He's doing that stuttering thing that Klank was talking about.
Me and Joe are, me and Joe are sick, and Jeff didn't want to have anything to do with our germs, so he's staying at home. Wow.
Yeah, well,
Joe
it's
and
not
I
just
bathe
that. I
in
got
it.
sick people at my house I've had to take care of today.
Oh,
so
we're bathing in it here.
yeah, I know that's the crazy thing. Everybody there is sick. Everybody here at my house is sick. Everybody at work is sick. I've been the only one not sick, so I'm trying to avoid the plague at all costs.
Well, see, I think I'm doing a lot better, but I do have a fever. And the only cure for that fever is more Klank.
So what you're saying is, after we do our discography discussion on Klank, to celebrate Industrial December, we should then cut to an interview that we did with Klank earlier this week.
Absolutely.
Klank Diolosa of Klank.
Yes.
He's so metal, he'll go Klank.
The one without me.
Well, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it had to happen,
yeah.
Jeff.
Yeah, I know. I just couldn't.
Well,
be
you
there,
know, it was super
unfortunately.
weird. I was like, yeah, you know, it's going to be me and Joe. And he's like, that's cool. And I was like, yeah. And then Jeff. And he's like, oh, no, I don't.
Fuck that guy.
I don't want to do it. Yeah. I think that's exactly how that went down.
I mean, only God
Probably.
knows, right?
Right. Probably. I mean, who knows? So, Klank, guys. So, do you guys know Klank? Is Klank like your... Are they a band that was on your guys' radar before this? Because they've sure as hell been on my radar.
Pretty much since I met Dan Terry, Klank has been on my radar.
I am the neophyte here. Klank has not been on my radar.
I see.
Well, not as a solo artist,
Okay.
I guess I should say.
Well, okay. Are you talking about when he was in Circle of Dust?
Yes.
Well, he wasn't. I don't believe he was on Circle of Dust recordings. And Klank, I know
okay.
you're listening to this, so, you know, let me know if I'm wrong about that.
He can come back
Okay.
later. He can come back for the Circle of Dust episode and tell us how wrong we are.
As far as I know, like,
that works.
Circle of Dust was almost kind of a Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails situation where Clayton wrote the songs, and then when he went
Okay.
on tour, he'd call Klank and, you know,
Gotcha.
make it happen.
Well, before we decide to talk about Klank or Circle of Dust, which is going to be next week on this episode of Discography Discussion, I want to take the time to say thank you to everyone who is listening and thank you for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. We are on Google Play. We are on iTunes. We are on Stitcher. We are on TuneIn Radio. So if you have an Amazon Echo product, you can say to it, Alexa, play the latest episode of Discography Discussion, and she will. We're also on Facebook and on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Be sure to like, favorite, and subscribe, and Dan is going to tell you all about 5-star reviews.
If you like our podcast, leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. We love that stuff. It helps us out when people are searching for discussions about metal. We want to come up in those search results, and in order to do that, we need 5-star reviews. And instead of being lame and writing our own 5-star reviews, we're letting you guys do it because we know you're out there and we appreciate you.
And we mentioned it earlier, but it's coming up later after we do the discussion. We're going to have an interview with Klank that we did earlier this week.
Absolutely.
And that guy is awesome.
That dude was so much fun to talk to.
And that kind of will bleed into Circle of Dust next week.
Yes, it will. Very topical month.
It's like we're staying on point and talking about industrial.
Right. So I think that's cool. I think we could do that. I think we can make that work.
Yeah, I don't know how we made it work, but that's kind of scary that we actually have a thought and we're sticking with it.
I know, right? You should listen to an interview.
So, Dan, tell me all about Klank.
So as we discussed before, Klank used to play guitar in a band called Circle of Dust, which was a industrial metal type of band. And they played a very similar style to Klank, at least back then. But around 95, 96, Klank thought, you know what? I'm going to start a band, and it's going to be awesome, and I'm going to play industrial metal, and I'm going to express myself through that music. And that's exactly what he did on his 1995 album, Still Suffering, which was released on Tooth and Nail Records, no less, which is kind of weird because that's like a punk emo label, right?
I mean, maybe at that time it was more like a punk. No, it was hardcore. It was totally hardcore.
Yeah, they had hardcore. This was before, because this was Tooth and Nail still. It wasn't Solid State.
Oh, that's right.
So I thought this was really cool because, I mean, how many other industrial bands were on Tooth and Nail?
I can think of one, and it's Klank.
Yeah, it's so, and interesting story about that. Klank actually, according to rumor, and he confirmed it on his podcast appearance on As the Story Grows, that he signed his original contract with Tooth and Nail in his own blood.
I mean, that's what I would have done.
It's pretty damn metal.
If I had had the opportunity.
Yeah, I think all of us would have done that if we had the opportunity to sign with Tooth and Nail. That's a pretty simple thought process there.
You hear that, Brandon Ebel? Sign Discography Discussion as a podcast.
How much blood do you need?
And we will sign it in our own blood.
What if we sign it in other people's blood?
Wait, does that mean Josh has to sign too?
No, Josh has to sign in Jeff's blood.
Okay, well, that's fine. We just have Jeff do that.
He probably already has vials of it whenever he kidnapped me and knocked me out.
Yeah, so there's that. So
it's probably no big deal to him.
Oh, Josh, he's a character. So anyway, Still Suffering is an industrial metal record from 1995. And
I thought it was 96.
95, 96.
Okay.
It's hard to remember. I have the cassette in my car, and it's all the way upstairs, and it's super cold outside, so I'm not going there. But the cool thing about this record is that, yeah, it does sound dated. It sounds like it's 20 years old, but my God, is it heavy for an industrial metal record. I mean, you had shit like Rob Zombie, Nine Inch Nails and stuff. I think the only thing that even comes close to this is like something like Fear Factory.
I would equate this for the mainstream metal fan a little bit closer to Rammstein. But yeah, this is all like Fear Factory overtones. Yeah. Metal, heavy, screaming, singing. It just sounds like it was thrown into a machine and spit out in different pieces.
Yeah, that's right, the Klank machine.
I want to go watch the Mangler now.
I thought this was almost more metal than industrial. In the sensibility of the songwriting. I mean, look at songs like Animosity and Downside and Fall. Like, those are fucking heavy songs. And it's not like, I mean, I think it's done flawlessly. Like, you definitely know you have a songwriter that's used to playing predominantly metal.
It's not a bad thing. Yeah, I thought like Skinny Puppy the first time I heard his stuff. I was like, as far as like at that time frame, what would be the closest to it? I mean, I grew up a lot on like God Lives Underwater. Like that was like in the mid 90s. That was like my band that wasn't that horrible Sunny Day Real Estate that you guys love to give me shit about.
Do you have any more of that whiskey, Joe?
I mean, I know you guys can't stand SDRE, but hey, that's okay. I really dug Klank. It really scratched that itch. I'm a big fan of that mid 90s industrial sound that's not completely mainstreamed out like Nine Inch Nails. It's not saying I dislike Nine Inch Nails, but the groove that he's got is it took me back. I felt like I was back in high school. I really enjoyed this album. I thought it was really good, cover to cover. I mean, there's a couple of standout tracks. I think for me, I liked Time was really good.
Yeah, Time was a good opener.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good way to get started out. And I liked Fall too. So yeah,
give me that Animosity.
Animosity
all
kicks
day,
your
every
ass,
day.
dude. That is a heavy song. And what I liked about this too is, it's on Tooth and Nail. It's on the Christian label. It gets labeled as that, and I don't consider this to be a Christian album in the sense that it's like altar call kind of thing. You know, I know there was probably some spirituality involved with it, but this is just hardcore stuff. The stuff that he talks about. He talks about depression and suicide and abuse, and you know, and it's really intense to me, and it's very sincere sounding. But I don't think it's all gloom and doom. Like, a lot of people focus on those topics, and they're like, yeah, man, that's what I'm feeling right now. But I kind of get this air of, like, perseverance over these problems. And so I kind of listen to Still Suffering as kind of a positive. And I mean, even if you look at the album title, Still Suffering, there's almost a positive in that. And that, yeah, I'm suffering, but I'm still here.
Still here. Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I'm still doing it.
So what you're saying is Klank was the guy on the Christian label or near the Christian bands who wrote the album that we all wanted to write in the first place. It's okay, we're still here, but those problems are real. Yes, it's okay that they're real.
Absolutely.
So that's right.
This is a great record, man. And, you know, like, for me, the nostalgia alone carries it. Because I've been listening to it for such a long time at this point that, like, it's like second nature. It's a classic album to me.
Yeah, I'll actually take it a step further. I think it's his best album. At least it's my favorite. And it's probably because of, like what you said, it's the whole nostalgia thing. It brings me back to, you know, when I was really heavy into industrial in the mid-90s. So, I mean, this is a perfect album.
I'm thinking about lockers. I'm thinking about getting, you know, swirlies in the bathroom. You know,
that never happened, dude.
Never happened. Never happened.
Yeah,
people just throw shit at you. Yeah,
I'm pretty lucky. I didn't go through outside of people thinking I was gay. I never really had, you know, really any grief that I got in high school.
Well, that was the whole thing in the 90s, Jeff. Everybody was supposedly gay. Because that's all I ever heard. Fag,
literally everybody.
Fag. That's all I ever heard.
I feel like this would be more appropriate on the corn discussion. But anyway, back on track. So, yeah, I mean, like, this record was awesome, and it really set a high bar for me for, like, what it was going to be. But then, like, I didn't hear anything from Klank for a while. And that kind of bummed me out a little bit. And he came back, I think, in 99 with Numb. It was like 99, 2000.
Yeah.
So before he's Still Suffering, so he's still going, but now he's Numb. So let's dig into that a little bit.
Sounds like somebody's had a few injections in key places.
Botox?
I mean, either that or going to the dentist, depending on how you look at it.
Novocaine?
Nova Scotia.
That's going to be your new nickname, Nova.
No, actually, Novocaine, that was one of my nicknames from high school. So
we're getting back into it here, Jeff.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah, so I made a big boo-boo.
What did you do?
You messed up, Jeff.
Yes, I messed up. I hardly listened to Numb. I listened to Numb Reborn.
Why would you do that?
Because I just thought it was a re-release because there's a 10-year gap between the two releases. I thought it was just a re-release with some like remixes added on the end. And it's essentially the same album re-recorded.
It's a do-over.
Yeah, it's a do-over.
Hey, if Motorhead can do it, why can't Klank?
Klank can do whatever he wants as far as I'm concerned.
Have you seen that beard?
That beard, dude.
Right?
That's epic beard.
Absolutely.
Like, I want to know how many years does it take to get that?
Well, if you'd have been here on Tuesday, you could have asked that question.
Yeah, I could have. I'm sorry, man.
It's all right. I'm just giving you trouble. So, Numb. So, I listen to the album Numb. So, like, Jeff typically will listen to bands on streaming services, which I will too to fill in the gaps. However, I just had the CD of Numb. So that's all I listened to. I figured, oh, okay, cool. So I had no idea until today that me and Jeff were basically listening to, I mean, the same album, but different.
Two different versions of the same song.
And we're gonna run into that. We're gonna run into that next week with Circle of Dust too.
Uh-oh.
So I'll get something going in the group text message about that.
Yeah,
just to give us all a heads up. Let's just say that there's 2 of the first Circle of Dust albums.
Yeah, because Numb, my favorite song on Numb, I like it way more on Reborn than I do on the original one, and that's Blind.
Blind, yeah.
Yeah, so it's definitely, it's just an updated, more modern version of those songs. I mean, it's not like there's anything wrong with what was prior. So, I mean, like, you know, because that's what you listened to as you grew up was the original one. I'm assuming, it's 2000. I'm hoping you had it on CD and not cassette, right?
I had it on CD. I don't think it was available on cassette.
Okay,
but if it was, no. Dude, it was one of those things where if I ever had the option to buy the cassette or the CD and the cassette was $2 cheaper, yeah, give me that cassette all day long, you know?
God, I was the elitist douchebag that always bought the CD.
Well, I'm the elitist douchebag now, so...
No, you're not. You're the trendsetter that all the elitist douchebags wish they could be, because you never sold your tapes.
Let's be honest. Dan had a cassette player in his car, and his logic was, this is the least amount of conversion I could do to listen to it in my car.
Maybe. That might have been what it was. I think I just liked having little rectangular objects near me.
Do I need to tell the story about the laptop in the passenger seat again?
No, you don't. So, Numb.
Nope, that's been told before.
Let's get back to Numb here.
On here.
Okay. So, obviously, you know, I've been listening to Numb probably more than anybody else in this room. And anybody that's on Skype. So, except maybe Klank, because he wrote it and he is on Skype.
We'll get to that later.
Walked myself into a corner on that one. However, I didn't like Numb as much as I liked Still Suffering, and I think that may have been the general consensus with fans. Numb is a great album, and it's definitely one that grew on me. But it wasn't the almost death metal that was Still Suffering. And me being a metal fan, predominantly, it was a little bit more hard for me to go on board, because it's like I liked the industrial as like a dressing on the metal steak. Whereas now it's like there's all dressing and a little chunks of steak thrown in there.
So it's a takeout salad is what you're telling me.
It's like a Cobb salad. And Cobb salads are really good for you, I think.
Not in large quantities.
Okay, well, the ones I always get are like humongous. It's like
I know, right?
Cobb salad. But
seriously.
No, it just means that it clears out your colon.
Yeah,
isn't that good for you? Isn't that like what all those?
Dude, can we have one podcast without shit jokes? Numb. The only issue I had with Numb is that it wasn't obviously as heavy as Still Suffering. There wasn't as much screaming, and I mean, in 2000, 17 years ago, that's the kind of thing that mattered to me. And as an adult, I can appreciate it because, dude, the lyrical themes are more on point than they were on Still Suffering, like more mature. And the songwriting was better overall. It is, in a lot of ways, a technically superior record to Still Suffering, but the nostalgia alone of Still Suffering still puts it ahead of Numb, in my opinion. And I haven't heard Numb Reborn, so,
You're listening to it right now.
It sounds great.
Yeah, it is good. It's still not as good as Still Suffering, but it's very good.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check it out pretty much as soon as we're done. So
I don't think you'll be disappointed. I think he did an excellent job.
Yeah, I'm not disappointed at all. From what I'm hearing.
Well, what happened between 99 and 2012?
All kinds of shit.
It is time for Urban Warfare, and it seems like there was a large gap.
Yeah, I kind of just assumed that there was no more Klank. So when Urban Warfare dropped, I was completely caught by surprise. I mean, you got to think, 2012, so this is like... So I'm listening to Numb in my parents' house. This is... So, like, the difference between Numb and Urban Warfare for me was like... Shit, I mean, like, I was...
You're now married?
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm like...
Is she
going
pregnant
from
yet?
being at home, she's not pregnant yet. No, that's 2 years later. But, so it's between Urban Warfare. We'll get to that, between Urban Warfare and Rise. No, like, I mean, I had moved out of my parents' house. I'd been in two bands at that point. I had done a Christian metal magazine for a year. I had done, I'd gotten a job. I'd worked at the game store for almost 3 years at that point.
Oh shit.
Yeah, dude. Like this came out. I listened to Urban Warfare at the game store. Think about that.
Dude, that's messed up.
I don't think it was. I got inventory done like
real quick.
In like
fast.
30 seconds.
Dude, I was like, scan, because here's the thing about Urban Warfare. We're back to heavy here, people. Urban Warfare was a very good return to form, but it's one of those weird things, because, like, Still Suffering is essentially, like, what was the heaviest industrial metal you could be in 1995. And this is the same thing again, only updated for 2012. Which I really liked. The songwriting I thought was really on point here. This record's got it all, man. Like there's electronics, there's danceability to it, but then there's also like bone crushing riffs and like death metal growls, and like it's the real deal, man. Like it's literally, when I heard this, it was literally everything I wanted from a Klank record. You know, it was like, yeah, man, here you go. You like Still Suffering? Well, here you go. You got something that's not the same record. It's years later, but it is very much in the same spirit.
Right. Yeah, for me, it was like, there's a band that I really like called Seth ETC. And I know I've shown it to you, Dan. And this is, they're like, this album is like a slowed down version of that, especially the
Slowed
eponymous
down?
track.
Really?
Yes. Yeah, Seth ETC is like in total fast forward.
Gotcha. Okay.
So yeah, but especially like Urban Warfare, like the first time I heard Urban Warfare, I was like, oh, it's like if somebody like took the guys off from Seth ETC, took them off the speed and had them make a conscious thought
To them after rehab.
You totally would get, especially the track Urban Warfare. That was like the first thing that came to mind whenever I was listening to this.
Gotcha.
So I have to admit, this is probably my least favorite out of everything that I listen to. That doesn't mean that I dislike it.
Man, now I know why Jason Wisdom called you a douche. No,
Man.
Oh damn!
it could have been a cough, but it definitely sounded like he called you a douche.
Yeah, I'm shocked because normally if I get douche, it's because people don't like my poop jokes, which
Right.
I understand. But everything else, I try to be like, I love everybody. I want to make everybody happy.
Man, I don't know. Did you listen to songs like Sick is the New Sane, Stomp You Out, Blow It All Away, Built to Survive?
Yeah,
Like, dude, seriously, 7 to 10 is like one after another. I mean, beat you over the head.
He must have spent some time with this one.
This was a good fucking
He
record.
had to have put some effort into this as far as the songwriting goes.
I mean, he had essentially a 10-year gap or 12-year gap. But yeah, I memean, it's not like I'm not saying it's bad. I don't want to give that impression that it's bad. I'm just saying that I like this other stuff even more. I
Sure.
guess that's probably the better way to put
Okay,
it.
fair enough. I like it.
But yeah, Stomp You Out is it's pretty fucking insane, man.
So this one is my favorite.
What, Stomp You Out?
No, Urban Warfare.
Oh, this album. Okay.
This is my favorite Klank album.
Why is
Okay,
that?
no wonder you're giving me so much shit.
It's so heavy, dude. And like, I'm a meathead like that sometimes. It's just, it's what I needed. And again, you know, like I told Klank in the interview, you know, I was like, man, when I first heard Still Suffering, I was there for the angst. You know what I mean? I was there for the rage. And you know, I got that, you know, package delivered. And I guess it's a testament that people don't really change that much. Because in 2012, I'm like, yeah, dude, I'm here for the rage again. And again, package delivered. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those, like, damn, dude, this was, like, completely out of the park. I thought, like, honestly, like, because typically bands like this, you know, that play industrial metal, always drop the metal. Eventually. Like, when we're talking about Circle of Dust next week, when we listen to the last couple of Circle of Dust albums versus the first couple, huge difference. With Klank, it's not like that. He's like, no, dude, I kicked your ass back then. I'm going to kick your ass now.
So you're saying you're going to stomp out loud?
I'm going to stomp it out, man. I am. I'm not going to blow it all away because that's the coward's way out. But, no, that's a...
Save me.
Yeah, sorry. Save Me's good. Sick is the New Sane is awesome. And again, this is angry. This is pissed off. But this is still very, you can get through this.
I got through it.
This is a battle that you're fighting. This isn't, you're not just dead in the ground somewhere. This is, again, you're going to get through this. Even if I have to beat you over the head until you get through this. Jeff didn't read any of the lyrics, so.
Oh, yeah. I mean, come on. We know who I am at this point in time.
Well, can I make a statement, too, that Klank for a aggressive vocalist is very easy to understand?
Oh, that is very true.
It's very old school thrash.
It is, and it's cool because, Klank's kind of interesting to me in that he has a very large variety of vocal styles.
I thought you were going to say large beard.
He does have a large beard, yes. But he has a very large variety of vocal styles, from your thrash metal shouts, punk rock yelling,
So maybe he has some extra voice boxes hidden underneath that beard.
He's got to have some extra voice boxes because he can sound... He can sound completely different, from one track to another. And I think that's cool because there's singing in there. There's gruff, shout, bark, you had in Downside. But then, dude, on Urban Warfare, he goes into full on death, guttural death growls.
Yeah, that's my favorite track on that album.
Sick is the New Sane. He does it on that.
Yeah,
a couple other times too on the record, and they actually do return on Rise. Which I think we're going to get into here pretty soon.
Oh, I'm so happy you mentioned that.
Yeah, that's actually going into
2017. Rise by Klank. Oh my God. This is going to be my album of the week.
Is it really?
2017,
nice.
Man. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what changed. I know that technology got a little different and attitudes got a little different and shit happens. And then we get Rise. This is the closest thing that I've heard to the first release. It would be redundant to say in a long time because it's been about 20 years.
22 years.
Just about. I
Dude,
feel like
remind me.
96 again. I feel like this is... you wanted Still Suffering? Well, I can't give you that again, but what I can give you is Rise.
Well, I think that Rise is the most positive Klank album.
It's so heavy, though.
It's very heavy. I don't think it's as heavy as Urban Warfare, but it is certainly there. It's certainly in the pocket. What I like about this is you can tell this guy's been writing songs, I don't know how long he was writing songs before Still Suffering, but this is 22 years later, dude, and it shows. The songwriting is so much more on point than it was before. Because one of the things about Klank Records is that I think he was always trying to introduce so many different elements per song that you ended up with albums like Numb where they kind of seemed a little all over the place.
Numb was the least metal, most industrial.
I could see that.
Might be the reason why I liked it so much. It's not that I don't, it's just because I'm in the mood for industrial since we said it's Industrial December. So I've really gone down the rabbit hole this month. It's been crazy.
Jeff's that guy that, is on a metal podcast that doesn't listen to metal.
Oh, bullshit. Come on, man. So are you going to tell me that out of all the bands that we listened to this month, that Cybreed is not the most metal? And that was my contribution.
Depends on what you mean by metal. I think Still Suffering is pretty damn metal.
Oh yeah, I agree too.
And we haven't even talked about Brainchild by Circle of Dust yet, so
We'll be getting to that next week.
you just wait.
Okay.
I love you, Jeff. I'm just giving you trouble. But
I know. I got to play along and and explain myself.
he's got to just take it, man. Yeah. Rise is great, and I really like the song "The Beast Within." We talked about that song a lot on the interview. There's a really good video for "The Beast Within," and it's kind of an anti-suicide song. And that's nothing new to Klank. He has a suicide song on every album, so this is if it wasn't there, I'd be disappointed, and. I loved this song. I thought it had a really catchy hook to it. And to me, it's the standout track on the album.
I give you the Beast Within. Maybe Rise.
Manipulation.
Oh, yeah, Manipulation is so good.
Rise is there for me. That's probably
Rise
my
is
favorite.
good. Yeah.
I actually like Devolve, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Devolve is awesome. I mean, really, there's not a lot of bad songs on the. We've mentioned almost every song on the album now.
Yeah. Well, I think we've kind of made it an established fact that we kind of feel that way about everything that he's put out.
Yeah.
Even if it's not, we might have, certain albums that we like more than another.
I'm just being
really,
nitpicky.
We like everything that he's put out.
Absolutely. I'm just being nitpicky so that it doesn't sound like I'm not being objective, Like, it's
I'd rather you be honest than objective.
Well,
if you're
no,
a fanboy, then just go with it,
I'm not
man.
making up criticisms. I'm just talking about, like...
I know. That's why you're giving me shit instead.
Absolutely. But, Rise is... I mean, so we didn't... It wasn't as long of a wait, obviously, between Numb and Urban Warfare as it was between Urban Warfare and Rise. But, that was 3 kids ago. And so that was kind of rough, right? But... It might have come out before my 3rd kid was born, but, he was still a thing. But yeah, like, this is, I think this is more mature. Like I said, I was always there for the angst before. And this record just seems a little bit more introspective, a little bit more refined lyrically. And so it still affects me on the same level as an adult as it did whenever I was a teenager or, in my 20s.
So it brings you back to that bad place to remind you about your good place. Is that what you're saying?
All about my good place. But yeah, I mean, that's, we talk a lot about Rise in the interview, and so I don't want to take away from that too much. But I would say my final thought on Klank is that if you are into industrial music or you're just into metal and you want to hear something that's a little bit different than what you're used to, definitely give Klank a try.
Jeff, what about you?
I'm glad that we did this episode. I'm glad that just because we're on the podcast doesn't mean that every single person that's between the 3 of us has listened to whatever the band is prior. So I've enjoyed this introduction to Klank. I mean, I know just like I'm hoping you guys enjoyed my introduction to you guys with Cybreed.
Absolutely,
100%.
Klank actually mentioned Cybreed on the interview.
Oh, did he really?
He said he had just only heard them a few weeks ago, but...
I wonder why that is.
Yeah. I don't know.
Who knows, Jeffrey?
Could be purely coincidence, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope he enjoys them as much as I am enjoying his music.
Cool.
I say that Klank is industrial. It is heavy, and I love it. The music is... It has the tone that all the 90s kids are craving for in the mid to late 2000s of pop garbage. It will bring you back to that place where we all used to listen to 9 Inch Nails and Bush. Yeah. Feels good to be a 90s kid. Dan, I think it's about time we need to get it over to our interview with Klank. What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's cut over to that interview. It was a lot of fun, and hope you don't have anything to do for the next hour and a half.
What about our tracks of the week?
We're going to get to
our albums of the week.
Yeah.
Change the channel and I'll break your fingers.
Oh, there he is. Okay. Well, all right.
Man.
Awesome.
All right. Hello there.
Hello.
Hey-o.
I love face-to-face. It's funny when people are, sometimes people have bad internet connections, so we always end up having to go audio only, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah, because people's faces freeze. They're like in the middle of a word,
I know.
I'm having flashbacks to Scott Mellinger, Dan.
Right. Well, Klank, I'm Dan. I'm the guy that's been relentlessly messaging you all week.
Well, howdy. How you doing?
Pretty good.
And I'm Joe down in front.
There's Ellie, my dog.
Aw. Look at your family. Look at your family.
Right? Oh, man.
Does not care.
We're all furry.
Right?
Oh, man. So, how's Texas?
Texas is pretty cool, dude. I'm digging it. It's definitely a change up because I was born and raised in New York City and raised in Long Island, and then I moved out to California like 10 years ago. I like it out there, but it's just way too expensive, man. The cost of living is just so grossly overinflated. It's not funny, so...
Yeah, I don't think I could afford a studio apartment there. I mean, it's...
Dude, my wife and I were renting a one-bedroom cottage at the top of a mountain in Santa Cruz. I mean, it was Santa Cruz County. It was really cool. It was gorgeous, but right now in Texas, I'm renting a 3-bedroom house with 2 baths for the same price that I was renting a tiny 1-bedroom studio with a tiny bathroom. I mean, it was decent. It was like living in a postcard because of the area. Our property had like 100-foot redwood trees around it, but like if I stuck my elbows up like this and turned, I would put them through the wall in the shower. So,
and then that would cost 3 months worth of pay to fix. Yeah,
dude, seriously. And gas was like $3.69, $3.89 a gallon.
Oh my goodness!
I got out here and I paid $2.09 a gallon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, I'm saving money on that, and even just general utilities. My utility bill was $180 to $200 a month there. I pay $43 a month here. It's
that's
crazy.
So awesome.
Give yourself a raise just by moving.
We live just south of St. Louis, and it's the same
Seriously.
thing. It's the cost of living south of St. Louis is pretty cheap. I mean, gas about $2.25 for a gallon, and I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and I was paying it was like $850 a month,
something like that
for that. And then I moved into I just went south by 20 miles, bought a house, and my mortgage payment is $150 less than the apartment.
That's awesome.
I know.
That's cool. I always liked St. Louis. That place Cicero's we used to play at when we come through town.
Oh man, you know what's terrible too? I've been working over there in University City for the past week or so, and it's actually they just closed Cicero's down forever.
Yep.
Oh, boo!
Yeah, it used to be the place for local bands to play. Man, it was awesome.
Oh.
They also had really good pizza too.
Yeah, dude, I remember we got to play. The last time we played there, dude, it was this crazy snowstorm. There was only a handful of people. There was 8 inches of snow. The place was really cool. We chowed down on some pizza, played our show, and there was a handful of people that were there, but they were diehard fans. So it was really cool to the people that really appreciated it were there. And I was like, man, I'm surprised you guys braved the storm, because they were telling people stay inside.
Right. Yeah, we have those every now and again. It's weird too in St. Louis because it'll be 75 degrees until the day it snows, and then it's 4 feet.
Yeah.
It's out of nowhere.
It's a regional magic trick.
Well, the reason we invited you onto the show tonight is we are doing. Typically, we're more of a metal show. We talk about metal, hardcore, all that stuff. But we decided in December that we were going to do something a little bit different because I realized in the year that we've been doing this podcast, we've never, with the exception of maybe Death Therapy, we haven't really talked or touched on any of the electronic stuff, at all.
Death Therapy. I just saw them Saturday in Oklahoma.
We just talked to Jason about 3 weeks ago.
That's awesome.
Yeah. He sat down and had a big, long conversation with us about Living Sacrifice, so we were stoked about that.
Yeah, dude, it was Death Therapy and Soul Embraced and this band called 13 Minutes. It was called the Not So Silent Night. They raise toys for kids that have been removed from abusive households during the year, and they hook them up it's like a toy drive. So it was cool. Went out to dinner with those guys. I've known Lance. I've known Lance since my Circle of Dust days. We used to tour together all the time. So that was 25 years. I've known Lance.
It was a minute ago, yeah.
Yeah, I've known Rocky probably 18 years, if not longer. But it was really cool to spend some time with Jason because I've been pestering him saying, what's it going to take to get you and I in the studio to make some noise, dude,
Yep. He's a busy guy.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it. I remember when his old band, Become the Archetype, when he left that band, he just went full time into teaching and stuff, and a family and a house. It's like, but now I see him out with Death Therapy all the time, and I'm like, dude, where do you find time? It's hard enough for me to find time to go do the podcast, and that's local,
Well, he said his wife said as long as he's making money, It's cool. She's like, whatever you do, as long as you're making money, it's cool. But we need to be able to eat, you know.
Right.
So,
Fair enough.
Sounds familiar
the
a
end of the day,
little
you gotta
bit.
put the food on the table, you know.
I know that feeling. That's pretty much why I don't play music anymore. So
That's why my shows are sporadic, and we have to plan them out far in advance.
right.
Build up the hype.
Yeah, seriously, because no one wants to leave their couch anymore. They
No.
want to watch a really bad Facebook Live video that's blown out, or some YouTube video where the sound is like crazy, you know.
Oh, I think I can hear my favorite track. Yeah, it's like, come on.
Well, I don't want to sound like that guy from that band I don't really like, but yeah, I do wish everybody would put their cell phone away at the shows that I do go to.
Yeah. It's usually it used to be lighters back in the day. Now you see the glow from the everybody's screen, and it's not a good thing.
Right, but it's not even during a slow song. You know, it's like,
totally. It's like,
but yeah, no, I just thought so recently you were on As the Story Grows recently with Travis, and I listened to that. I listened to that episode, and I was like, man, we really need to talk about. At first, it started off with we just really need to talk about Klank on the show. You know, like we need to do a beginning to end, kind of, because that's what we do for the most part. Our format is usually typically the three of us will sit down and we'll start at the beginning of a band's career and go all and discuss every album from beginning to end, and that's it. Eventually, after a while, we kind of got first we had Travis on the show because we're a big fan of his, and you know, and then we started having more people on, and so it's kind of turned into one of those most of the time we still do our discussions, but we've really got this taste in our mouth for talking to people, and we're like, you know, maybe people don't just want to hear our opinions about things. So, so that's whenever I kind of just started reaching out to people that I had been listening to for years.
well, that's cool.
Yeah, so it's really exciting, actually. I was driving, I was like, I'm heading out, honey. I got to go talk to Klank tonight, you know. So it was pretty cool.
Call me if you're going to be late.
Yeah.
Just bring home money.
Right. So, but yeah, so what we're doing in December is we're calling it Industrial December. And so all of December, we are doing only industrial bands.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we're actually gonna do we're gonna do a full on Klank discography discussion this month. I don't know when it's gonna be done, but
awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Thank you.
Hopefully you'll feel that way when we're done, right?
When we're done butchering it and cutting it up.
Yeah, this was great, but this sucked. Yeah, no, but we're not that meatheadish about it. But
whatever, dude. You and Pantera have a discussion.
Me and Pantera had issues, yeah. But besides that, but yeah, so yeah, we're gonna do Klank this month. We're gonna do Circle of Dust, and we already did. What we do last week, Joe? Cybreed?
Cybreed was last week, and then Christmas just happens to fall on a Monday, which is usually our release schedule, so we're going to be doing Project 86.
Yeah, we're doing a Christmas special on Project
just
86.
Because I want to talk about the Christmas records on Christmas.
I just heard Cybreed this year for the first time, and actually when I was on my way home with my friend who's also my boss, he was just playing the new Project 86.
Yeah, I just got it yesterday. It just came out, yeah.
Yeah, from what I heard, it was pretty cool. It sounded sonically nice and big.
Yeah, it did. It was they went to some really expensive studio in Nashville. I should know. I helped pay for it. We did the crowdfunding thing.
Well, when you have $100,000 to blow on an album, that must be nice.
Right. Well, I think just knowing that, I think crowdfunding is really cool because it's one of those that's how you kind of gauge if anybody still cares or not,
Yeah.
Instead of spending all your time and energy and money into making this thing, it's really nice to have guaranteed sales before you've even began.
Yeah, true.
So, with it being Industrial December, I was the guy, I guess, back in the day that I had Still Suffering on cassette, and I meant to bring the cassette tonight, but I drove my car and I didn't drive my wife's car. My wife's car still has a cassette player in it, so I was gonna listen to Still Suffering all the way down on cassette.
Retro.
Yeah. I've got it on tape and not vinyl, tape and CD. I'm holding out for a vinyl at some point.
Well, maybe next year. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Hint. Put it this way: it costs a lot of money to get Tooth and Nail to approve anything these days.
I have heard that.
But I've gotten approval for it. The only thing is, I need a check that has a number, a zero, a comma, and then 3 more zeros in order to make it happen.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, it is. Especially when you're broke, you know?
Crowdfund it. Crowdfund the still suffering vinyl. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's that much demand for it. I'd be like, yeah, we need like 10 grand, and I would get like $10.
Right. Well, it's all right. You know, it would probably be a lot cheaper to do a Rise.
Yeah, we actually been looking into doing a limited vinyl release of that.
Okay.
We did this past year. We checked into a bunch of different things we wanted to try. We have a wish list of what we want to do, and sadly it all comes down to money, you know. So, but the Rise album has been selling pretty decently, so we were trying to put a little bit of money aside and try to maybe do like a 300 pressing or something like that. I think it's weird though, because like album sales aren't what they used to be.
Not at all.
But now there's like a crazy like influx in vinyl. You know, like some people really been vibing on vinyl, which is great. But the thing is, it has to be cost effective, where I'm one of those guys like, yeah, I'm a musician, but I'm also a consumer, and I don't want to be charging somebody $25 for vinyl. You know, I'm like, I have a soul. You know,
Right,
I don't want to like rip people off.
You have a soul that you haven't muted yet. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't, you know, signed over to anybody in flames, so I'm just trying to, so we want to do the best we can with it, and we're holding out that sometime after the new year, maybe with some of these other releases that we have coming up, we can use that to kind of fund that machine. You know, basically, what was that saying? Rob Peter to pay Paul?
Yes.
Maybe it was the other way around. I'm not sure.
Yeah. The jury's out on that one.
We'll basically rob one of our other projects in order to try to fund this. So.
Well, it's funny to me because that's the thing that we all said was eventually going to happen. Digital music took off, and everybody said it's cheaper to buy the songs. Why would I buy the CD? Until it became not cheaper, and there are no CDs, there are no records, and then now everybody's like, you know what I really wish I had? Physical media. And then Dan pops up and says, I never stopped saying I want physical media.
You know, if Armageddon happens tomorrow and we're living in, Fallout, and, it's just me in my house with a bunch of spam, I still want to listen to Still Suffering and Numb and all that. You know what I mean? Like, I still want to be able to listen to my stuff, You
won't be able to stream it if wherever the server is blown up or melted,
We'll have to get you an old Victrola so you can just sit there listening to your Clank albums.
Well, yeah, when the power goes on, I should still be able to hand crank the vinyl, yeah. So that should work out pretty well. But we're not like super professional reviewers or anything. We're heavily inspired by As the Story Grows, in the sense that we just like to have a conversation. So I don't have a piece of paper and a list of stuff that I'm going to ask.
That's cool. I like stuff that's off the cuff anyway. I like, it's not typical, what's the word I'm looking for? Like cookie cutter type, like, what's your favorite band? What's this? I mean, those kind of interviews are cool, but after like 25 years, it's like, come on.
You can almost have a soundboard of yourself and just hit the button and let it play.
Yeah, exactly. Like just triggering samples with answers, cut and paste answers from, which would sound like answers from 25 years ago.
Right, and we live in
That's your
age.
next record, sir. 25 years of answers.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
That's a freebie.
Still answering.
That's cool. Be like a straight up remix. But yeah, so like one of the things that I wanted to touch on, because we're trying to do this with every genre of music. We're kind of trying to do like a what about episode, because there's way too many genres of music. There's too many cores. There's too many variants of metal. There's too many variants of, and so one of the things that we strive to do is do almost kind of like an overview of a specific style. So we chose you for the industrial one because, in my opinion, you'd be the guy to ask.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So what was it, I guess? And again, I know you did Travis's one, so I'm not going to retread too much of that ground. That podcast exists. Anybody can go listen to it right now. You were talking about how, what was it, where the mosh pit meets the dance floor?
Yeah, well, that's how we describe it, because people would say, well, how can you describe Clank's music? And we've been labeled industrial. We've been labeled electro metal. We've been told we're like electronically infused groove metal.
Damn.
I mean, like you were saying, like labels, sublabels, subgenre, blah, blah, blah. It's all metal, but it's like there's different. I understand there's different things. Like Ministry is like industrial metal. but like Pantera's metal, it's some people like they just feel the need to break it down into these little boxes, and I like to say, you know what, we're a metal band, and we have a lot of window dressing when it comes to like samples, loops, old school analog synths. I mean, to us, it's like another member of the band, So I mean, electro metal is like, I think, kind of the best way, industrial, electronic metal. Those are usually like the three that the nice little box they wrap and put us in, is basically like, electronic industrial metal, which works. I mean, because we have the elements of everything. I mean, when people say, oh, industrial is more like Skinny Puppy or Einstürzende Neubauten, it's like, yeah, but all that's changed over the years because Rammstein's considered industrial, and
like
Static X was considered industrial. Yeah, I mean, it's great too because people refer to us as dance metal. I'm like, I'll accept that. I'm a sucker for a great melody.
Right.
Yeah, good beat.
Totally.
Not necessarily a million miles per minute. Of course, there is that too.
Yeah, and, I mean, you can have, and that's why, like, for us, we like to cover all the spectrum. Like, some of it's super heavy and aggressive. Sometimes it's very melodic. Sometimes it's very fast. Sometimes it's very mellow or mellow-ish. Because we, like with Klank, never wanted to be confined to one in particular box. I wanted to basically Klank to be whatever we wanted it to be. It could be super, super, super heavy. It could be mellow. It could be very melodic. I didn't, I wanted Klank to basically not have any barriers. And the music that like myself, Pat, and Eric create we think is a great example of that. Because like even if you listen to like Rise, like Bring Me Down is super heavy, and The Damage is it's just very heavy and in your face. But songs like Only Human, it's got its heavy edge, but it's got like 8 layers of vocal harmonies, and and like Till the End, I'm like I said, I'm a sucker for a good melody. So whatever the music seems to call for, that's where we go with it. If it's heavy, it's heavy. If it's mellow, if it's a mix of both, so be it. For us, it's whatever sounds good to us. Because at the end of the day, you have to be aware that you're making music that other people are going to listen to, but you have to love the music that you're creating, and you have to be proud in whatever this project is that you're pouring your heart and soul into. And that's why, like, first and foremost, we are Klank fans. We're fans of ourselves and what we do. And we want to, like I said, we keep into consideration, there's people who are going to hopefully buy this. But at the same point, we need to write and record what makes us happiest. So at the end of the day, we keep our musical integrity intact as far as like, we could just write a whole nother Still Suffering, or just do dancier stuff, or just do the heavier stuff and the death growls, but we like to mix it up. We don't want to be locked into any one box.
Yeah, why do one of those things when you can do all of those things?
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of like a salesman that's just given a piece of crap, and they say, "Go out and sell this," and he's like, "Really? This is a piece of crap, and I got to go sell 20 of them." But then that same guy, you give him something he loves, he goes out and sells 20, and then 20 more, and then 20 more. So it's almost as important to make something that you love, just so you can go tell people how awesome it is.
Oh, and it totally is, because at the end of the day, like, I got to believe in what I'm doing. I got to believe in what Pat, Eric, and I write and record, and we do. I mean, like, especially with Rise, we're... Like, obviously, it's easy to say, oh, this is the best release we've done so far, because that's what everybody says with every release. But I think sonically, songwriting-wise, I mean, we are really, really, really proud of the way it came out. And it's gotten no bad reviews. It's been really well-received, and we're really stoked on it, like, especially myself, because I write all the lyrics and stuff, so we might work on the music and stuff. But when it comes to the lyrics, it's like, man, what do I want to say? And it's like, our lyrics have always been very personal and very relatable to people. People, that's the one thing, is we've had a great connection over the years with young kids, old kids, adults, just people saying, like, there's just something about your lyrics. You have that beat like Rob Zombie does, but you're not singing that gibberish. It's more like you looked inside my head and with a flashlight, you looked around and you saw what I was thinking, but I couldn't say it, but you said it for me, and I was feeling it. Or kids that are like going through hard times or contemplating suicide or addiction, and they go, man, I don't know what it is about your stuff, dude, but the stuff that you guys write, man, it hits me in the heart. And, you know, dude, if I literally had $1 for every letter or message we've received that said, "Still Suffering and your music was the soundtrack to my adolescence," I'd never have to work another day in my life, dude. And to us, that is like the ultimate form of props, flattery, you know, just to have that many kids to be like that. You, at the end of the day, for us, it was like, man, we created something that somebody on a large scale got something out of, and it hit home with them in their heart. You know, that's hardcore. And for us, it's like, it's, you know, it's great to do that on one release, but to be able to consistently do that and touch people it's heavy. Like, mentally, it's heavy. Like, you know, for myself, because, you know, I'm very vocal on social media, and I try to keep a strong presence. And when you have all these kids that you see suffering and just going through crazy stuff, you know, and you be transparent with them and you say, hey, you know what, it's okay to suffer. You know, a lot of bands put up this online persona of, you know, life is just blue skies and green lights, and I have fancy cars, and I got chicks, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah,
I got all the stuff that doesn't matter. Yeah.
yeah, crap. It's crap. You know, at the end of the day, we all struggle. We have bills to pay. You know, like Pat's wife's having her second kid. You know, like, we are all struggling and going through life, and we like to write about life, how we see it, how it affects me, how it affects my friends, my bandmates, my family, and things we go through. And I kind of document it and put it in a way that, for some reason, people relate to. And for me, that's like, that hits, like, it hits all of us, but that hits me in the heart, like, really hard, man. Like, sometimes I'll sit there at, like, you know, reading, like, my Facebook messages or posts from people, and it's like, I got tears in my eyes from somebody saying, like, you have no clue what this did for me. When someone says, I was literally going to kill myself, I had a knife, I had a box of pills, or, you know, I had a gun, and I was just looking for one reason not to kill myself. And one of your songs happened to come on, like, randomly on my thing, or I came across your album, and it just made me weep, and it made me think, and it made me change my view on that, because what you said hit me. It's like, dude, what do you say to that? You know, I mean, That's hardcore, you know?
Yeah, no, I definitely feel you, especially that song, The Beast Within.
Yeah,
I'll
dude.
tell you what, I mean, I was dealing with a lot of issues, I guess a couple of years ago. I mean, it was before the record had come out or anything, but I remember hearing that song when Rise came out, and I was like, yeah, man. Because I went through all of that. I had to go talk to the counselors. I had to go talk to, you know, fortunately I'm a success story in that I got through it. But what I liked about The Beast Within the most was that it's like, at least for me, my own personal interpretation was just that this is something that is constantly being maintained. It's not something that's just like, oh, yep, I washed my hands of that, never have to worry about that again. It's a deep-seated issue that you have to kind of constantly keep in check. And so so that song really hit me hard whenever I heard it, because I was like, man, because Rise was the first album that I listened to by Klank that I was like, it kind of gave me that same feeling that I had with Still Suffering. Because when Still Suffering came out, you know, I was still a teenager, so like all the angst and frustration, you know what I mean? So
you had that teenage angst in there.
Absolutely, yeah. And so that record obviously was perfect for that type of anger. So it's really cool, you know, in my adult life. You know, I'm married, I have 3 kids, you know, but it's like I listen to this and I'm like, wow, yeah, okay, I'm still that same person that I was, you know.
Yeah, it tapped into those same feelings that you had then, but as the older dude with responsibilities now, who's got, you know, so much he's got to live for.
Right. So yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. The lyrics have always been really on point as far as like actual, like, stuff that people can relate to. You know, there are a lot of bands that play a similar style. You know, like you said, like with Rob Zombie and stuff, where the lyrics are just garbage.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like something to fill a song like, hey, man, this sounds cool, this sounds evil, or whatever, you know, and it's like...
It's thrown together phonetically because it rhymes. That's what a lot of that is.
Right.
Which is cool. There's a time and a place for that, but I like substance. I like sustenance. I like something that, like, when I hear it, it catches me, and, like, just as much as the beat catches me, like, what is this guy saying? And it's like, I kind of want to, like, sink my teeth into it, and I like to get something out of it, you know, something edifying, something that basically I like something that stirs something inside of me, and that's what we strive to achieve with our music. Not like we sit down with every song and say, okay, we gotta touch people
right.
with this, but
it has this, yeah.
Exactly, like you want to do something that people can really get something out of, and you're like, man, you know what? At the end of the day, it's like, all right, God, we're putting this out there. Hopefully, dude, like same thing I did with Still Suffering. It was like, you know what? If one person got something out of this, I feel like my job is done, and it'll make me feel good. And then all the letters started coming in, like back in the day, in like the AOL Messenger, like when that just goes to show you how long ago that came out. Like Juno.com was big as for email and
Angelfire, and Lycos. Yeah, I remember.
GeoCities.com. All the messages would come in, and it was like, man, there's so many people that are feeling this, and it was like. It was heavy, man. It was pretty hardcore, and it's just to be able to, still release stuff that people find relevant, and that still touches people. Like, did you see the video for The Beast Within that we did?
Yeah, I watched it on Facebook, and I was like, dude, this is it. Like, it's really cool whenever I hear a song, because I totally understand that sometimes my personal interpretation of a song may not necessarily have been what that song was necessarily about, or but like after watching that video, I was like, all right, yeah, I got that one right, like
Anthony Herrera, he's a guy that he's done our artwork since Urban Warfare. He did Urban Warfare cover, Rise cover, he did our lyric video for Manipulation, and he did this video for us. Like he knew what the song was about, but I had talked with him pretty extensively and what we wanted to kind of get across, and he said, man, I got something in my head that I really want to try to work with. If you guys are cool with it, can I run with it? And we said, absolutely. And he had his wife in the video. He had some of his friends, because he had just lost a neighbor to the same situation, and he was feeling it. And just when Still Suffering came out, just before Still Suffering came out, I was struggling. That's why I wrote the song Disease. Disease was about suicide. Like a body in a box, flowers on the grave, no one can hear your cries, final choice is made. That was like documenting me spiraling out of control, considering taking my own life. And then if you look at like the Klank releases, a lot of constant theme has been perseverance, never giving up, and suicide. Like Blow It All Away from Urban Warfare it's kind of poppy, but it's about suicide.
There's a suicide song on every album, I've noticed.
Pretty much. And people go, well, why are you always writing about suicide? I'm like, because it's still an issue.
I think it's awesome that I'm still writing about it.
Yeah, but it's whacked out that we still have to release music trying to give people awareness and tell them, hey, you know what? Life sucks sometimes. There's no candy coating it. Life can freaking suck. It's a roller coaster ride. You got to take the good, you got to take the bad, and you got to deal with things as they come. And sometimes things are awesome, and other times they're just crap, and you're in like the complete epitome of the dirt, the mire, the mud, the muck, and it sucks. And you need to know that people are there and they care. And I know how hard it is. It's easy to say, oh, if you're struggling or hurting, reach out to somebody. It's true. But a lot of people just feel like they can't talk to somebody. They feel like, well, I can't tell these feelings I'm having to somebody because they're going to think I'm crazy, or they're going to try to get me locked up because I'm saying I want to hurt myself.
Right. Well, that was my problem. Is I did reach out, and I did get I admitted myself into a hospital, and that was one of the worst experiences in my life because they took away all my personal freedoms and put me away, and they put me in a holding place with other people that were mentally, and it was actually, and I guess it was helpful in the sense that was where I kind of snapped out of it. Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute,
It served its purpose, even though it was tough as hell to go through.
Absolutely. And I think people are afraid of that,
Well, yeah, because nobody wants to go through that hell. And at the end of the day, one of the biggest things we wanted to get across with The Beast Within is what is the first things you usually hear people say when somebody commits suicide? Oh, the guy was a punk. He was a biatch.
He's a coward's
He took the easy way out. He copped out. He didn't think about anybody. And my favorite, which makes me want to punch people in the throat when I hear it, says he should have just manned up. Just man up. Chris Cornell should have manned up. Chester Bennington should have manned up. When you have a family, you don't do that. And I'm like, you know what? Like we said, unless you've walked a mile in those shoes, you have no clue, because when people, like Travis said on the podcast, like he had the same similar mindset until a friend of his explained, your brain fires this way. When you're going through depression or you're on meds and stuff, your brain is misfiring and you're not reading and you're not getting information properly and you're not processing it properly. And it's like a short circuit, and that's why people just want the pain to end. And yes, they do think about their family, they do think about their loved ones, but at the end of the day, is the pain and the struggling that they're going through so much that they have to do that. They feel that there's no other way out. And dude, it sucks. When I was 16, my friend Douglas, when I was 18, my friend Douglas that lived next door to me, lived right behind me, killed himself. I've had 8 people now during the course of my life take their own life. Somebody that my wife and I had worked with, these two women we worked with, both killed themselves within a year of each other. And it was like, when does this crap end? And it's like, it's an issue and it sucks. But a lot of times, like the medicines and stuff that you're on, the side effects. I mean, you see the TV ads, like take this for depression, but side effects may include
total misery,
whatever, suicidal thoughts, rectal bleeding, your heart will explode. It's like,
right.
And it's like, really, is it really worth taking this to fix this situation? Like if you're paranoid or suicidal or depressed, you're going to take something that's supposed to help you, but the side effect is it might make you slit your own throat.
Right.
It's crazy, and it's the fact that so many people suffer and go through it is hardcore. But I think, sadly, between Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell, I think that was a kind of a big wake-up call, because it was 2 huge names in such a short span of time that I think, obviously it wasn't good that it happened to them, but sure, the fact that it happened to two such high-profile players in the music business, that people that were struggling started to kind of come out of the woodwork and say, man, I'm going through crap, and not to copycat them, but they, a lot of people were kind of after the fact, looking at some of the stuff Chester said in his lyrics, or Chris Cornell, was like, man, this just sounded like a happy, good song, but some people didn't realize that how much they were suffering and what they were going through, and that put on the happy face facade when you go out in public, but inside you're dying, you're slowly dying, and you're miserable. And it's sad, because you have these people that are multimillionaires, that are high profile, playing arenas and touring. They have love and admiration by hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, and they're just suffering inside. It's really sad, and it's something that's always hit home, and it's hurt, especially knowing so many close friends of mine. Pat's guitar player and his old band took his own life, and it's we know so many people, and it's if you don't know somebody directly that committed suicide, somebody or somebody you admire in music or art or something in the arts, you're affected by it one way or another. And it's just when it's somebody personally, it hits home so much harder, and it sucks. It's it's like when you see somebody on the ground, you want to reach down and pick them up, so you'll try, but it just sucks when sometimes you can't get at people. You see them hurting and you just can't reach them, and it's I don't know, it sounds redundant, but that's why we constantly have these songs about it, because there's just such a need, and it sucks to see so many people hurting and hear their stories, But in your case, it's great to hear success stories, because, you're still here. Like you said, you're a father, you're a family man, and it's you think about if you would have made a brash decision, who knows where any of that would have went, or what would have happened to your loved ones, and there's all that, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Who would have known what, life would have been for those around you had you did that,
One of the things, for me was that, and we talked about this. We talked with Scott Mellinger of Zayo a few months ago now, and we talked about this very topic. And one of the things that he said, because with me, my depression was more situational, where it wasn't necessarily clinical. So it's in a lot of ways, it was easier for me to overcome once I got out of that situation that I was in. Yeah. But for a lot of other people, one of the things that I noticed that's hard is that, and again, that's really why I love that song, The Beast Within, because it really hits home in the sense that, like, have you ever noticed that whenever you're upset about something or you're depressed or you're down, everybody's like really supportive of you the first time you talk about it? And then the second time you talk about it, it's like, oh, it sucks that you're still going through that. And then the third time, they don't want to hear it at all.
Yeah, they're like, get over it already.
Yeah, come on, man, you're still going through that. There's drugs for that,
Yeah.
And man, that sucks. It's like one of those things that, like, because even with me, it was a situational thing, but it's not like I don't get depressed or I don't have, issues. And I was lucky enough to realize that, like, for me, I'm a creative person. So I felt like I needed to continue doing something creatively. Like I said, I played music years ago and I quit doing that. And so for a while I was just working and, so, eventually it was a no-brainer that's like, you know what, I could do a podcast and talk to people and have fun. And so that was one of the things that contributed to kind of getting out of that situation of like, no, I can matter in the sense that I'm going to create something that I can go back and listen to. Even if nobody ever listens to this podcast or nobody ever downloads it or whatever, I've at least got something that I can go back to and be like, this is what I contributed to,
And that's awesome.
Yeah, that was our whole thing, man. And like, yeah, it's very frustrating. And that song, like, really, and one of the things that I thought was really cool about it, to kind of bring it back to the music side of it, is that, like, I thought it was really cool, and I probably said this before, but like, that it's 2017 and I can still listen to a Klank song and still have that same feeling that I had, when I was a kid, And
that means so much. Like, that means so much to me, and I know, like, with Pat and Eric too, because of that, like, knowing that and the fact that people still get that connection, dude. That's why we still do what we do, And it's like, I know the people are like, oh yeah, it's great to hear that kind of thing, but dude, seriously, like, that's the kind of stuff that, like, brings me to tears, because it's like, this is something that we create, that somebody's getting something out of it. Like, and it's not just like, oh, this is a cool song. They're like really connecting with it. And for me, dude, that's so great to hear. And I appreciate that so much.
Well, and like us being music critics, I listen to so much heavy music. You know what I mean? Like, so much, like, to the point where, like, if I really start getting into it hardcore, people start walking away, Come on, dude, there's got to be more to it than that, And it's weird because, like, I listen to so much heavy music, and I identify with the anger, the frustration. There's some bands that just, like, really hit home, but then I kind of feel like 90% of it is just... It's just there to be there. You know what I mean? It's just there
it's
to
filler.
Yeah, like it's fake. Like, I mean, like I like death metal bands and stuff, Yeah, like I like bands like Cannibal Corpse. I love their music. It's very, really intense, but the lyrical output doesn't match up with that. It's just like, killed this person, and this is like a detailed depiction of how we killed this person, even though we didn't actually kill this person, and we don't know. We just watched a lot of horror movies and thought that would be cool to make lyrics.
We watched a Dexter episode and wrote about it.
Right. So like, there's so much metal, I guess, out there that's just so fake, and that was. That was my biggest attraction to Klank, especially because, like, when I first got Still Suffering, somebody from my church gave it to me. And he gave me a tape, and he's like, yeah, check this out or whatever. And it was funny because I would listen to it, and, like, at the time, people were showing me, like, bands that were very, like, well, like, just very Christian, very religious or whatever. And so, like...
Very preachy, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, when I listened to Still Suffering, I was like, well... And it's funny, too, because you open up the lyric booklet and it basically says this is not Christian music, or like not specifically that, And so I remember listening to that and being like, wow, like this is really like, it was almost like my secret. Like I could listen to this angry, heavy music and nobody could give me any trouble about it because it was on Tooth and Nail Records. So that means it must be, totally safe for me to listen to.
That sounds like your Zayo logic all over again.
That's my Zayo logic, man, 100%.
Well, that was the thing is, like, parents didn't approve because it was heavy. Parents didn't approve. Dude, we had Brandon Ebel had called me and said, we got a bunch of returns. Why? because the album artwork was too dark. They said you didn't thank God. I'm like, I did thank God.
Right.
Yeah, and I said, I'm, obsessive compulsive and anal retentive. I made my special thanks in alphabetical order. People got pissed off because God was under G and not first.
Oh my God! That's going to send you directly to hell, right?
Oh, dude, I got an easy pass to the down that hell now.
Right, for sure.
But it was weird though because it was like people said the album art was too dark. It was like every page was black with just white writing on it, and it was like every excuse you could think of. It was like, but did you listen to it? I'm like, it was about, questioning spiritual stuff like God and, songs like Downside, that was released 1996. It's still relevant today.
Absolutely.
Like, there's so many, songs like Burning, like, questioning things and saying like, hey, God, I know you're there, but where are you? What the heck is going on?
Isn't that smart to question spiritual things that you're going to dedicate your life to?
Yeah. And it was like, and that was the thing, is like people got stuff out of it, and it was like for all the returns and the crap. I mean, dude, people would boycott our shows. We played Cornerstone. We didn't consider ourselves a Christian band then, but we just wanted to play. We didn't care if it was like a church basement or like Anton LaVey's church barbecue. We didn't care. We just wanted to play. And people would come up to us. I was like, dude, there's nothing more, I don't even want to say aggravating, something more bizarre about having an 11-year-old kid come up to you and say, I really love your music, but unfortunately I have to give you back these 5 shirts I bought in your CD because my parents says it's not Christian enough. Nothing good can come out of this. Your shirt says, in my world, there is no end to pain. I had a woman screaming at me. She was screaming saying, your shirt says, in my world, there is no pain, and there is no end to pain. It's a quote from Scarified. She's like, once you're a Christian, there is no pain. And I was like, lady,
are you crazy?
What planet do you live on? Because you're nuts. Like, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you don't have any pain. If anything, you might even have more because you're trying to live a good life. And dude, it was like, you name it, we had it happen to us. Like the boycotting, the returns, people coming to like Cornerstone and at our press conference and saying, well, I can't support you and what you do because you say you're not a Christian. And I said, you know what? For many years, I didn't like to use the term Christian because the term Christian got misconstrued. I mean, being in that market, I saw all the people that would preach from the stage, would give altar calls and all this, but then they were getting drunk and high at their homes or whatever, and it was like, I'm not going to sit there and bash these people publicly because that wasn't my place. But at the same point, I didn't want to be a part of the hypocrisy, and I've been burnt by many churches that I was in growing up, like scandals and craziness, people that should be in jail for the stuff that they did, and they're not, and they never got any, they were never brought to justice for the things that they did. And it's like, I didn't want to have any association with that. I mean, it wasn't over until like I was telling Travis in the other podcast, like it wasn't until like last year, the end of last year, where I started coming around because of my wife. And I was like, for the first time in my life, I'm in a position where I'm not ashamed to call myself a Christian. I don't like to use that term a lot just because there's still,
it has associations.
Yeah, there's still people that, use that as a ploy to do whatever they want to do. But at the same point, I'm like, I like to live my life the best way I can, the way I think a Christian should live. And my example, like, hopefully I'm trying to, the example I'm giving off to people is what they need to see. At the end of the day, I want to try to be what I think a good example of a Christian should be, because you can quote scripture all day, you can talk the talk, but if you're not walking it, it's counterproductive. And I don't believe in bashing people over the head with a Bible on a street corner. That, to me, that's counterproductive too. You know what? You really want to talk to people? Let them see how you live your life. If they say, hey, you know what? There's something about this guy. There's something about this woman here. Like, there's something different about them. They try to be good people. They're trying to live like Jesus would live and not getting hung up on all the nonsense. I don't know, dude. This is one of those things I could go off on hours.
It's all right. We've actually had 3-hour podcasts before, so
yeah.
we're
Well, because there's people that get hung up on, if you don't observe the Sabbath on a Saturday and you observe it on Sunday, you're going to hell. And I'm like, really? I think that my God is a lot bigger than that. That's not, there's just little things that people will nitpick about. And, I don't know, dude. It's like, at the end of the day, try to be the best person you can. And I like to try to live my life, especially these days, the best way I can. And, try to, if anything, hopefully I can show somebody that you can still be a human being. You can still make mistakes and stuff, but you can still try to live a positive life and be a good example for people. And they'll hopefully get something from that and not think it, oh, you're just another typical Christian with insert, thing how they've been wronged here by somebody claiming they were Christian. And it's like, that's not what it should be about,
Did you ever look at one of those people that came up to you and said, you put your thanks in alphabetical order and say, ma'am, it could have been worse. In the Latin alphabet, Jehovah begins with an I.
At the end of the day, no matter what you do, people will find something to nitpick about and complain.
Absolutely. And honestly, I used to be one of those people. I was... at one point in my life, I would have described myself as a conservative Christian or a fundamentalist type Christian.
You were definitely a fundamentalist.
Yeah, and I did that for a few years, and really, it was one of those frustrating things. I was totally, it kind of became all about me after a while.
Yeah.
And stopped actually being about the religion aspect of it. It was about how I was right, how everybody else was wrong. And you know what's really sucks about having that kind of mindset? It's really lonely.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to hang out with you, because who wants to be judged for every little thing that they do, And
by somebody who's right all the time.
It's weird too, because so we did a Christian music magazine back in 2005. That's 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago. And
it's been a while.
Yeah, I was fresh out of high school and I really wanted to do something for the Lord or whatever. And it was, we talked about Christian extreme bands and stuff like that. And it was kind of cool. We did a podcast, and so it was really funny because 10 years later, I show back up on Discography Discussion, and immediately people that knew me were like, dude, you're saying curse words on your podcast
a lot,
and you're drinking beer, and you're doing all these things that supposedly Christians aren't supposed to do, and
how dare you?
I know, right? I know, seriously. But what was funny about it was that I was just trying to be more honest with people, and honestly, as much as I praise Travis and his podcast, I think that dude's great because he really inspired me to just kind of be a little bit more upfront about things.
That's awesome.
We have a little bit of personal experience with Travis, and Joe, you can cut this part because we've gone over it a million times. But
save it for later. Next time, go ahead.
We were in a band. We were in a band around 2006, 2007. We actually recorded our album at Travis's house, and so
nice.
that was our connection to him. And but no, I remember listening to his podcast and just being really inspired. Wow.
I know that guy.
Number one, you're right. But number two, it being this idea of I'm a huge Zao fan, and how they kind of fell out of the faith, side of it over time. And but what I really liked about his style was that I don't have to necessarily shun my past either. I can still talk about how dude, I was a huge Circle of Dust fan back in the day. I was a big Tourniquet fan back in the day. I was, and all that stuff. So it's kind of cool nowadays being able to kind of come out of the woodwork, talk about a lot of this stuff that really only a very specific portion of the population actually remembers.
Yeah, I hear you.
I don't know where I was going with that, but
I don't either.
but no, it was just really cool, and going back to Still Suffering and a guy at my church giving it to me. I remember because I bought, or he gave me Still Suffering the tape, and then I was like, well, I don't want this tape, so I bought the CD, and then I got Numb after that, and I remember listening to it thinking, like, I never considered it Christian music. You know, I considered it positive music, despite what my mom said, you know. But, you know.
Nothing good can come out of that noise.
I was like, no, it's really positive, you know. Like, it is. It's uplifting in a way. And that was one of the things that really drew me to it, was that it was uplifting. And like you said, it was that theme of perseverance. Like, I think the biggest problem that a lot of people have with negativity in music is acknowledging struggle. You know, acknowledging that it's there. But just because you're acknowledging it doesn't mean that you're glorifying it. You know, it's just that you're saying, yeah, it's there, it's real. You know, like in the world that I live in, you know, the planet that I live on, the pain is endless. You know, or like, it's just one of those annoying things where it's like, yeah, in the real world where actual people live, pain exists.
Isn't it funny how nobody says that about country music or pop music?
Hey, there's some old school country that's really legit.
But nobody ever says that about that.
Right.
Yeah, all of that's like downer. You know, a lot of it's like, she took my dog, she took my car, you know, or the chick was vindictive and, you know, scraped up the dude's car with a knife. And
right.
A lot of that stuff it's kind of dark and sad and depressing, but if you wrap that in a heavy bow, people want to boycott it. If you wrap it up in a country bow and put a pedal steel guitar, you'll sell out stadiums.
Yeah, but that's why we have bands like Klank, where it's, you know, danceable and heavy. You know, like I didn't even mean to get on all those topics about religion and stuff, but it's just one of those things that, like, still to this day bothers me, is that feeling of just wanting to condemn versus wanting to help. Yeah. You know.
Because it's easy to condemn. It's easy to cut somebody up. It's a lot, but it's really hard to try to uplift people and help them up. You know, at the end of the day, think about it. If somebody cuts you off, dude, I'm from New York. Somebody cuts me off, my first reaction is flip them the bird. You know, but then I'm like, no, don't do that. That's not cool. You know, it's very easy to flash out.
Absolutely.
And go to something negative. The real challenge is, and I don't want to say turning the other cheek, but the real challenge is dealing with something and not letting it get the best of you, like the anger and the pissed offedness and the frustration, you know?
Pissed offedness. You need to copyright that.
Klank 2017.
Klank 2017. Trademark. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's I agree. Like, it's one of those, like, having to be an adult about everything.
Yeah.
Because that's what I consider to kind of be a well-balanced person, like the generally accepted idea of, how do I be an adult about this?
Yeah,
you know? And sadly, we don't have a lot of that, you know.
Yeah. Adulting sucks.
It does. Oh my God, it really does.
Yeah, sometimes it blows. This whole being a grown-up thing stinks. I wish I could kind of, like, get back in my TARDIS and travel back through time and go back to, like, you know, when I was 23 years old, touring in a van, making almost no money, but it was like, I didn't care. I was paying $300 a month for rent, and I didn't have no monthly expenses besides that. Now it's like, I'd give my left cheek if I only owed $300 a month. You know what I'm saying?
It seemed at the end of the world then.
Yeah, seriously.
But yeah, so, like, you know, back to that a little bit on the touring and the going out, and I sadly have never seen Klank live.
Boo!
Well, there was this one time, but there was a snowstorm. But, you know.
Hey, dude.
Well played, sir. Well played.
You're right.
That's a professional goal. You have been booed by Klank.
I have been, officially. Yeah. That's what we're going to put in the show notes, you know, booed by Klank. But yeah.
Hashtag life goals.
Right. But no, I remember, like, I could be wrong. I may have caught a little bit of Circle of Dust at Cornerstone one year, but it was, God, that was so long ago. I can't even, you know.
That would have been 98 or 99, I think.
It was a long time ago.
Well, with Circle of Dust, it would have been 93, 94, or 95.
Yeah, and, like, I would have been like this tall. I would have been very, very tiny at that time. And I remember, I just remember, like, the programmed beats and the, you know, the keyboards and again, I could have seen Circle of Dust, or it could have just been some other band. My uncle at the time told me it was Circle of Dust, so what do you know? But
Cool.
but yeah, I obviously a huge fan of that band. We'll be covering them later on, and I guess to kind of bring it back to music a little bit. I don't want to ask a dumb question like, what were your influences whenever you started playing?
I got it. May I?
Yeah, you go ahead, Joe.
Okay.
You take it. You're more eloquent than I am.
Yeah, except I'm losing my voice, so this is going to sound amazing on the podcast recording.
Yes, it will.
So
Just throw some effects on it. Distortion.
I'll shift it up a couple registers. Paul McCartney did
Again,
it.
Clank 2017. Just throw some effects on it. Yeah.
Put it through an Eventide. It'll be fine.
All right, so everybody asked the question, what were your influences? Why this, why that? The question I always like to ask is, what band did you hear that made you say, all right, now I'm going to go make Klank?
That's kind of a tough and loaded question because I like the biggest bands growing up. The three biggest bands that had an influence on me was Electric Light Orchestra, Kansas, and the Cars. Because I'm the youngest of 6 boys, so all my brothers had crazy musical tastes. So I, with being the youngest one at the bottom of the tree, got the joy of this nice, well-rounded plethora of things I got hit with. But I always loved like stuff like ELO and stuff. And then I was into bands like King's X and stuff like that. But
Doug
it was
Pinnick.
actually Doug Pinnick for the win. I love that
Stand-up guy. Yep.
Yeah. But Clay from Circle of Dust I was at his job, and I remember he played 9 Inch Nails for me, and he was my first exposure. He played 9 Inch Nails in Ministry, and I was like, what the hell is this? I was like,
I want more now, please. Yes.
the heavy, the electronics, and I was like, and that was the thing, like the Cars were very synth orientated, but they were like, brainy pop, and like ELO was very synth and orchestrated. So to me, I like stuff that was out of the box, like out of the normal box. This stuff was like, it had audio samples, it had loops, it had like noises and blips and sweeps, and it was like a dude who got his first shot of heroin. Like, it was like, what is this? I need more. And it was just like, holy cow, it was just something totally different. And then I started finding out about all these other bands, and like you had like the Fear Factories and the basically bands. I was like, you know what? I'm like, that's when, I was playing with Circle of Dust, and it was like 1993, and I was like, Klank originally was a side project idea, and I wanted it to be like death metal-y, but with that, I wanted like, okay, it's gonna sound weird. I wanted to bridge like Slayer meets Dr. Dre, and when I say Dr. Dre, I mean like musically, not so much the rappy, but just because he had the great samples and the old song samples and the loops and the beats, and I was like, I want something that's fast and heavy but has its breakdowns, and it's very just electronic, and I want to sway. I want something that's going to move me. I want a beat, because when I put something on, I want something that's going to get my head bopping, keep your head ringing, something that's just going to really move you. And as soon as you hear a good song with a good beat, either the foot starts tapping or the head starts nodding, and you're like, yeah, I like this. And I wanted to do originally that. That was originally what Brandon Ebel thought he was going to get, too, when he signed me. Because he signed me without hearing anything except for the original Animosity demo, which came out. It was recorded in December of 93 and released on an REX record sampler. Dude, it was, I cut 2 tracks, a rough bass. Clay had programmed out some drums. There was really no samples and just a total, like, guttural vocal. And it's so funny because on my popularity with Circle of Dust and that one song, I got signed without showing him anything. And then the first song we gave him was Downside, and he was like, I remember he was on the phone, and he was like, okay, so this is not really anything like what I thought it was going to be, but I like it. Give me more.
Right.
So it was like, cool, we got the green light, but it was like that just I think it was because of the possibilities were endless. The more I took myself out of traditional music and like the, just drums, bass, guitar, and vocals, and I started thinking, well, the Cars have all these, synths, and ELO has all these crazy like analog synths and Moogs and all these old chords. It was like the sky is the limit, and then my brain was just like firing my synapses. I couldn't even keep up with what my brain was firing off because I was like, I need to try to funnel this. And then that's how, Klank was born originally. But the first couple of times I heard like Fear Factory, and I was like, man, this is super heavy. But they did have their melodic aspects because, like in the early years, Burton was doing like the really gruff. And then songs like Martyr, he was like, suffer, bastard, suffer. It was really, he had both sides of the spectrum. And I was like, again, like tapping that vein in my arm, like, I need more. I want to do this my way. I want to take the heavy aspects and the singy aspects, but wrap them up in my own little bow, and put my touch on it. And hence, Klank was born. And in 95, when Circle of Dust stopped playing and technically had officially broke up, it was, okay, well, what am I going to do now? I'm like, because I was like, to me, Circle of Dust was my meal ticket. It was like, because, dude, Circle of Dust was blowing up. We were getting pretty big. So it was like, what am I going to do now? And ironically, I don't know if you've ever heard of a band called 6 Feet Deep.
I have.
I played guitar on like 3 tours with them because Mike Schaefer wasn't able to play.
I had no idea. That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, they were old friends and label mates. So, right, like a couple of months after Circle Death ended, I mean, dude, I was in a really bad depression. I was bummed out because I was like, man, it was my chance, So those guys got me back on stage, and it was just like they were like, man, we need a guitar player that knows how to tour. And Tom Woolfield, the drummer, called me up and he was like, dude, do you think you can play? And I was like, I'll try to figure some of the stuff out, but I'll come out early. So I came out like a week early. We jammed a bunch. I stayed in the house with those guys because they all lived in like this one house in Elyria, Ohio. Learned the stuff and then went out on the tour. But then, I digress. But then after that, Brandon was like, hey, are you going to pursue your Klank thing? And I was like, yeah, I think I am. And then it was like, okay, well, now we're going to move full forward and try to start the Klank thing. And the rest is, as they say, the rest is history.
Right.
But that was the launch, like Circle of Dust was the launching pad for that. And, and the time I spent with 6 Feet Deep was cool too because they were friends, they were good friends, but it was hardcore. It was different. I was just used to playing metal. I was like the token metal guy in Circle of Dust, and that's where I got the name Klank,
What is Klank? It's me!
Yeah, exactly. It was like I was chasing the promoter's kid around, and one dude went to trip me, and Jason's like, dude, you can't do that. This guy's so metal, he'll just totally clank when he hits the ground. And it just kind of stuck, and it was funny, but I mean, here we are, the debut album came out November 5th, 1996, and here we are. It's 2017.
It's crazy. And, I can't believe it's been that long, honestly. Like, it's weird when I went from that kid who just hated everyone, And
hey, dude, he's right there, by the way.
Here we are in 2017, and it's like, has it been that long? I mean,
yeah. Now picture that for me.
Jesus, I know, right?
When the kids say, my dad turned me on to your music. I was like, really? Like, when were you born? I was born in 1998 or 2002.
No, bullshit. Nobody's born after 1994. Yeah.
And it's kind of, it's kind of funny for us because we start to think about it. I'm like, oh my God, man. I'm like, yeah, I'm old. We're old. Like, the band is like. Oh, that's why it's funny when people have never heard of Klank before. They go, hey, so, do an interview. And they go, we got this fresh new band called Klank. And I laugh and I go,
you're like, what the hell?
Fresh?
Yeah.
I go, I don't know about fresh, man. I'm like, we're not new. I'm like, we might be new to you. And then they go back and they go, oh, you have this many albums out? And it's like, yeah. And that's why, this past year, we really wanted to kind of up our ante, too. I mean, one of the pros and cons of having your own studio is you can not have to pay somebody like studio time and stuff, right?
Right.
And what's one of the cons? You could spend 2 years working on an album like Urban Warfare, and then you get to that point where you go, when is enough? When is enough enough?
Worth the wait,
like,
by the way.
Yeah,
So,
thank you.
yeah.
But it's like, it was the same thing with Rise, dude. It was like, okay, we were kind of like, you know what? Like, sooner or later there has to be a cutoff point. And Pat would be like, are you done with this song? And it was like, Only Human. I'm like, yeah, I'm done. He's like, you sure? I'm like, yeah, nothing else. No vocals, no nothing. He's like, I can start mixing it. I'm like, yeah, we'll start mixing. And then he'll be playing it back like a rough mix. And I'll start like, we're on. And he'll be like, oh no, you're not adding another part, are you? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm hearing something. And he'd be like, okay, press record, because, you can get lost sometimes. And that's where you just kind of have to go, all right, we're going to draw a line. We finished it up the end of last year, and like January, we made sure it came out in January. And just recently, like 3 months ago, we released the soundtrack, the musical score we did for, it's called Metal Missionaries, the documentary. Yeah, and that's and it's funny, again, my childhood friend Bruce Moore said, hey man, I'm doing this documentary and I would love to maybe have you guys do the score for it. And we're like, all right, we've never done that before. And
hell yeah.
So we did that, and it was great too, because people were like, wait a minute, not only did we get one Klank release this year, we got 2 technically?
Yeah.
I'm like, because there's 22 songs on there. I mean, there's no vocals because it was written just music, but if you
it's
listen...
still pure Klank. Yeah.
Dude, but if you listen, I don't know if you guys have listened to any of that, but if you listen to like some of the songs on there, it's like, it's this crazy riff fest. Some of it is just, I was like, what is some of the most crazy, obnoxious riffing I can do right now? Like the very last song called Coda is just really like, it's all like gallops, and like by the time I was done, I was like, Pat, I need an ice pack for my wrists, because it was just like... Because we just wanted to be crazy with it, and then... That's
because you don't have to sing over it at all. It's just...
Oh, dude, and that's a blessing in disguise. Because it was like, this song is great. I don't have to worry about writing lyrics, But yeah, dude. I mean, so like we've been totally happy with like all our releases and stuff, and just like this past year, like I said, being able to do the 2 releases, and we have almost in the can now a Rise remix EP. Which will be coming out in 2018.
Awesome.
Which has remixes by us, remixes by a handful of people that we admire their work, mutual admiration. There's some brand new songs, and there's it might just be 1 or 2 cover songs on there too.
Dude, I'm excited about that for sure.
Yeah. And so we were like, especially with me moving to Texas, a lot of people just assumed, oh, well, Klank is over and done with. I'm like, actually, no. The joy of technology is Pat's in the studio in San Jose, FaceTiming me late nights, and so I'm working with him. Like we'll send me like MP3s of stuff or play stuff over the phone, and we're like, all right, this is cool, but why don't you try adding this? What about putting a keyboard here? So I mean, the dynamic has changed a little bit, but we're still creating.
It's face to face, man. I feel like you and I are in a coffee shop right now talking. You know what I mean?
A
like
coffee shop that serves beer.
Coffee shop that serves beer. But yeah, like it's but no, like that's the wonders of technology. Right now, what we're doing could be a band practice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's one of those really cool things, and you can line into your computer and they can run into their headphones, and it's just like you're there,
Dude,
and
Pat has this program he found out about where the only thing we haven't been able to do yet is me cut vocals here and have it patch into him real time, but he found this program, this remote app, this remote program where all I need to do is have a microphone in front of me and plug into, I forgot exactly what he said, but basically it's this specialty program where I can just kind of go into a board. As long as I have an internet connection, I can go into this thing real time, and as I'm cutting, he can play it. I can have the audio in my headphones here, and my tracks fly right in real time, right into the frickin' studio.
That's awesome.
I mean, dude, how cool is that,
That beats the old ISDN lines where they would call in.
Absolutely.
And you'd be listening over the phone like,
Dude,
okay, do that again.
I remember listening to shit on like or downloading games and stuff on like bulletin board systems on a 28K modem, like this is crazy where we're at,
Yeah, we've gone from downloading a song off LimeWire to doing 96 tracks over an internet connection, and it's bizarre. It's awesome though.
Yeah, I mean, like for us, especially like being able to do face-to-face interviews, like that's insane in the sense of like, I remember Skype audio back in the day. Like it was like, okay, I talk, and then I press this button, and then they talk, and then it downloads to me, and then I talk. Like it's insane. I remember back when we used to do our metal magazine, I remember I did a lot of my interviews via like email. Like email interviews are the worst. But like it's funny too because I did one with Jason Wisdom back in the day for Becoming the Archetype, and he on our episode on Living Sacrifice, he actually called me out on it. Like he was like, "Oh man," I was like, "You probably don't remember, but like 13 years ago, I did an interview with you via email." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I totally remember all the email interviews I did in 2003, 4,
Yeah, that was crude, but it got the point across, and it was a method of communication then, and it served its purpose.
I remember thinking that was like the biggest deal in the entire world, and like, dude, with like podcasting, it has been incredible as far as like the people that we're able to talk to. That like, like, dude, I was a kid in church listening to Still Suffering on a cassette tape, and here we are talking now. Like it's crazy.
And here I am in my freezer grabbing ice so I can pour myself a drink.
Hey, you know what?
Skype interview from the freezer.
I did think it felt a little. Oh, it's so cold in here. Yeah.
Hey, damn, that guy's not Alton Brown.
That'll be next. Yeah. One of the things that we talked about really early, this is like an hour ago, so I apologize, but like we, when you were talking about the electronic elements and being able to do whatever you wanted to do you feel like using electronics in metal music makes it easier to go in whatever direction you want to go in?
Well, when it comes to that, it's like I always noticed there was more possibilities with, with the technology, with the keyboards, the samples, the loops, all of that. It was like, yes, with traditional music, it's like you are kind of limited because you have your just typical, like I said, drums, bass, vocals, guitar, but you have, for myself, I would hear, I had an old Chevy, and when I would close the door, it made this really wacky noise, and I remember saying, dude, I want to sample that. My friends would be like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I want to sample that, record it, and put it in. So, dude, I'm outside with back in the day with a little handheld DAT player with a microphone, closing my door, getting all kinds of little noises. And I'll never forget my friend Mike from high school when I ran into him, and he was one of those guys that like he always played guitar. He wasn't that good, but he had tons of gear, but he always played guitar. And I remember telling him, he's like, yeah, I hear you're in some band now. I said, yeah, Circle of Dust, it's industrial music. And he goes, what's that? And I explained to him, and he goes, all right, dude, I'm going to be honest with you. He's like, nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to hear heavy guitars over dancey beats and like freaking computer music. Sorry, it's never happening.
I beg to differ.
I was like, okay, whatever, but I thought differently. And, here we are all these years later. It's like a lot of times, a lot of songs will start like if I come up with a riff idea or we jam an idea and we'll be like, okay, like, dude, I'll sit with my drum machine and my guitar and I'll say, okay, Pat, here's a sketch I got. I got like 5 or 6 different riffs and like a little basic layout. I'm like, this is what I got. And he'll be like, okay, are you hearing anything, sample anything, or are you hearing anything electronics yet? And I'm like, well, not yet. Take it, start throwing your feeling on it, and let me see how it goes. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, only because my screen just started tripping out. It said low battery. Let me get my charger here. But so then he'll basically take it and he'll start to grab what he's feeling in his mind, and he'll say, oh man, I got a great idea for this. I got to put a loop here. I'll put some noises here. And then usually a day or two later, we regroup, get together, and he's like, okay, this is what I've got so far. And it's like, oh my God, I might not have had a lot of ideas initially, but then after hearing the flavor that he threw on it, all of a sudden the floodgates are open in the brain, and it's like, oh, dude, you put this melody here. I could totally put a vocal melody over your keyboard line. Let's put a couple of noises going back and forth. And that's one of the joys of working with Pat for like over 20 years now, is he's been one of my best friends and like the main guy that I always worked with from way back in the day. And it was like, we have this great musical relationship where I'll say, dude, this is what I'm hearing, and I'll try to simulate it as well as I can with my mouth. And he'll go, oh, do you mean something like this? And he'll grab his mouse, and he'll be like, click, click, drag, click, 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 move this here, stretch this, pitch shift this. And he'll be like this, click. And I'll be like, oh. You're like,
you read my mind.
And,
yeah.
Dude, seriously. And because he's the tech guru in our band, like, I come up with a lot of ideas. He makes them happen. He's the guy that, has clocked in thousands upon thousands of hours behind the board. And we have this great working relationship. Or Eric will say, dude, what if you put something under, I'm hearing something that goes, whatever, and Pat will make it happen. And it's just this great working environment where, like, the sky is the limit. Like, like I said, like, the possibilities are endless. And that's where it also comes back to, like, also when you have your own studio, you have to get to a point where you say, okay, this song is capped off, because you can pretty much add samples and noises and stuff, like, for years.
Whenever, yeah.
Sooner or later, you got to draw a line and say, there's got to be a ceiling to this. But, yes, I mean, the short answer is there's so much, the possibilities are endless. And you can just do, because, I mean, look, with a guitar, you can make all kinds of noises. You can simulate all kinds of things just with a guitar. But if you have all these other, keyboards and synths and loops and old school Moogs and all this, it's like, man, dude, you can take a noise from a movie, pitch that noise down, play it backwards and chop it up, and it's a part of a song and nobody knows.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you'd really be amazed and surprised at some of the things you hear in songs that you don't know what they originated at.
Right. Well, that's necessary, right? Because in today's age, if you upload that song to YouTube or you upload it to Facebook or something, it's going to get caught by a filter,
but dude, like, you're a Circle of Dust fans. You know the song Telltale Crime?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay, you know the band Believer?
Mm-hmm.
The very first album Believer had, I don't remember if it's called Shadow of Death. It's the one that starts off. Clay basically took the opening riff to that song, played it backwards, cut a couple of little parts of it, and that is the main riff from Telltale Crime.
Does Kurt Bachman know that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
no, it was also on REX.
They're all on the same label, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Believers are old friends, too. It's i.e., like, on Manipulation, Kevin from Believer did the guitar solo on that. So, but it's just, like, it's amazing the things that, like, you can do. You can just take something like, a rusty pipe or a bang from something. Like, one of the things we had this old bag of, it was like a burlap bag with old cassette tape cases in it.
Nice.
I remember years ago we dropped it on the floor and it made this crazy sound. And I remember we had my friend Mitch, he sampled it. So we had, we set up like 4 different microphones and we got all like technical with it.
Yeah.
Drop it on the floor and then sample it. And then that becomes like a part of a layered kick drum, which sounds like this big, boomy, like John Bonham, Led Zeppelin, like, and it's, but you never know. Yeah, totally. So it's amazing. Like, the possibilities are just so endless.
That's so awesome. Okay. So I'm just thinking about dropping like a big bag of cassette tapes or cassette tape cases, Yeah,
you do. You know anybody with a punching bag? Take a punching bag, put some mics around it, and hit it slow, like with an aluminum or wooden baseball bat.
That's your bass drum sound?
Yeah. Well, no, I'm just giving. I'm helping you come up with a bass drum sound now.
Perfect. Yeah.
See, Dan, I can hear this phone call now. Hey, Joe, you know that bag of cassettes I have? Yeah, I want the bass drum to sound like this.
Let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have your 2 mics on your kick drum, and then you have 2 ambient mics in the room, and you drop this bag from like 4 or 5 feet, and you're like, there you go, and it layers over it. The possibilities are just endless because people just layer drums. Like you'll notice a lot of albums, like if you just have a kick and a snare, it'll sound fat, but if you layer like 2 snares over that or a slightly differently tuned or recorded kick over it, all of a sudden you have this giant mammoth sound, and it's all those tricks in the studio, you know?
And then some bands take it too far and their entire record is a fake drummer that they just bought a box of samples for $300 at Guitar Center.
And they, oh dude, and like just like totally trigger, like that triggered kick and snare sound where every hit is identically the same.
But you know, here's the thing: when you're watching a movie and you see a CG character, the human brain is really good at detecting fakeness.
Yeah,
and I definitely feel that on a lot of the like triggered drums that are out there, where it's like every single bass drum hit is identical to what it was before, and it bugs the shit out of me because I'm like, dude, no, this is they played this maybe, I'm giving the benefit of the doubt here, they played it maybe on an electronic kit, but it was just sampled over.
Yeah, a lot of times it's actually a real kit and they mic it and they just basically take that line, that track, and they use like sound replacer. So you'll say, here is your kick and here is your snare or your toms, whatever, and you basically click, you open up the window in the effects and you go, I want the Devil Driver kick, I want the Depeche Mode snare drum, and the toms from whatever, Megadeth or whatever, and it's like, you just basically like enable it on that track, and you can do one of two things. You can layer that over it, or you can just completely sound replace. And just for the ease of convenience in the studio, most like, and I don't want to say like just metalcore drummers, but it's very common in that.
Just say it, today, it's fine.
Everything sounds and every hit is perfect because it's triggered and replaced, and it's real quick in the studio to do that because you can just get a crappy sound. You
but
really
then
don't
in a
have to
live
put
show,
any
it's
thought.
like,
yeah. You know, but if you saw Fear Factory live, like they would mic the kit, but Raymond also had triggers.
Yeah.
So you had a triggered like digital kick over a mic'd kick, so it just sounded that much huger, and it was like, see, a little bit of effort, a little bit of time, and it sounds great.
You can say the word practice.
Right.
Yeah, play to a metronome for like 40 hours a week, you're good.
There's people we've talked to that like, I mean, dude, January, we like sat down 3 dudes and talked about a band. And like here we are in December talking to like our favorite bands. And it's just so weird, you know, that like it's just weird how that works, you know, like
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, like it's just crazy how like so much can change in a year or so many years later, you know, like I mean, when I was listening to Klank and Circle of Dust and, you know, even Becoming the Archetype even in the 2000s, like I never thought in a million years I'd be talking to you guys. You know, like it's just one of those weird things. That...
Yeah, I do, seriously. And it's like the joy of the technological age and the advancements we have, where now it's like you can do this kind of thing. And I mean, because look, like back in the day, like the original, like before AOL and stuff, it was like you could write you would see something in print in bands about bands, and then you could write to them if their PO box was in a written article, or you know when they were first starting like the web things. If you hear an interview somewhere online, and it would be like, you know, then they'd be talking, you know, real slow, like go to our website, geocities.com, Klank / you know, it was like
I remember,
very primitive back in the day, but now it's like, you know, it's like it's literally at the end of your fingertips. You can communicate with people, you can become friends with people, and at the same point, it's like, even for myself, because you know what it's like, the situation like you guys, you're talking to the people, you get a chance now to talk to the people that you had admiration for growing up, and for myself, it was like. Same thing with Doug Pinnick. You know, I've been friends with Doug now like freaking like 25 years. When we did Urban Warfare, he slept on my couch for freaking 6 days. It was like
that's so awesome. Like
Dude, seriously, it was like one of those, for me, it was like I had my total fanboy moment, where it was like this is something I've wanted for years and it's actually happening. And it was like, what? But, and then over the years, it's like the people who, I looked up to and stuff, I got to become friends with. And then to find people later on who I looked up to, I said, man, I really like these people's music. And they were like, hey, man, I really love the music that you've been doing. I don't know if you can see my cat in the background crawling on the top of my pantry.
I can, actually. I've been watching for a couple of seconds, yeah.
Wait for it.
I was waiting for him to, jump on my neck or something. Like, he's going to totally jump on the table.
If it happens, that's going to be the end of the interview right there.
Absolutely. We'll do a part 2,
But, yeah, dude, it was like to get to talk to people who, I admired, and they were like, oh, by the way, I really love the music you've been doing as Klank. And it was like, oh, wait, what? And it was like totally like, wow. I'm like, it, makes you feel good inside, especially if it's somebody who's like newer, because we're one of those bands that we've been around for long, and it's funny because because people go, oh, you're like old music. You're like 90s. Oh my God.
No, bullshit. Listen to Rise.
And it's funny though, because now it's like, you come at a point where you're still making music and you try to be relevant, and then somebody who is really relevant says, hey, you know what, you've been a big dude. When somebody that I look up to says, hey man, just so you know, your music and the stuff that you helped create was a really big influence on me, it's like, this is great to hear. It's totally humbling and great, especially if it's somebody who you really admire, and it's like, hits you right in the feels.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I relate to that in a big way. Yeah.
I was a nobody guitar player, nobody drummer. I thought I was terrible. And anytime anybody said to me, you're awesome, I've actually been listening to your album a lot and I want to meet you guys, I'd be like, okay, so we're writing a new song today, right?
Right, yeah. and then I call him back and I'm like, yeah, no, sorry, man, no inspiration. Yeah.
And then you used to get material demos and be like, I hate these.
I did. I was not easy to work with, but that's the thing.
Band diva.
That's the hard thing about being
lead singer.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about being a musical hipster, right? You're like too cool for everything.
Do you suffer from LSD, lead singer's disease?
Absolutely. I really, really do. And I think it was really cool on our album, though, that Joe played drums on Travis's kit. Clank, I don't know if you ever heard Travis's old band, Crutch. But I've
heard of them, but never heard them.
Oh, my God. They were like a technical death metal band that was very similar to latter-day death material.
Really?
They were so much better than he will ever admit. They were really good.
I'm intrigued right now. You
need to check it out.
I need to tap into this.
You do. If you have like a Spotify or a Apple Music account or something, check it out.
Spotify.
It is very much worth it.
There's only one record, right?
Well, okay, so as Crutch, they released an album called Hope Prevails. And then
I'm writing that down.
And then they changed their name to Alathian after that, which I'm not going to spell that because I've had a few too many beers for that. But for sure, listen to the Hope Prevails album by Crutch and give Travis shit about it, for sure.
Dude, I'm like, because I knew he played drums and I remember him saying like Alethian or something like that, but
dude.
Yeah, but he totally downplays it. So now
he is so much better than he gives himself credit for.
All right. Now, if this is something I'm going to pick at him like he's a scab.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Absolutely.
You know the difference between blast beats that are good and blast beats that are not so good?
That are annoying?
Travis is in the above good.
He's fantastic drummer.
His blast beats were consistent.
I don't care what he says. He's awesome.
Ah, that's good to know.
He wants to be Mr. Cool Guy or whatever, but honestly, if you listen to his music, it's really worth your time.
I'm going to check into that. Definitely. Hey, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. I really do. I really appreciate the support over the years with all the projects. And because I definitely want to stay in touch with you guys. You guys are really awesome. And I do really appreciate you taking the time.
For sure, yeah.
To dig in and stuff. At the end of the day, it's all about the listeners and the people that are willing to, like I said, like dissect, pick apart and stuff, and do the reviews and stuff. And I really appreciate the people like you guys that take the time to actually get music like mine across to the masses, because in this day and age, a lot of stuff you do it's just a labor of love, because there's no money. There's so many haters and critiques online, and if you just do promoting an album you like, I promote the new Believer album. Some people are always going to, I don't like the fact that it's not thrash. It doesn't sound like Extraction of Mortality.
Well, those people
I'm sorry.
stupid.
I like music. And you know what? I like all music. I like everything from ABBA to Zappa. I like when a band changes and does it. Slayer's is the only band that you can put in an album and it'll always sound like Slayer. But they're the only band that gets a pass.
Should listen to our Slayer
except
episode.
for Diablos and Musica. But
Yeah.
we won't get into that again.
Yeah. But Stain of Mine is a great song, though, from that album.
Absolutely.
That was
I
like
agree.
my favorite song they did on there.
For sure.
But at the same point, it's like, no matter what you do, there's always going to be haters. There's always going to be critics, and it's kind of frustrating. But for myself, and on behalf of myself and Pat and Eric, too, seriously, I appreciate you both very much taking the time out, and thank you for what you do, because without you and outlets like you, I mean, the scene ends up fizzling and dying, and especially now that we've gone from mostly the medium of print. I mean, look, it started back in the day with Xerox flyers or just Xerox papers stapled together, and then you had like full color magazines and books and like Hit Parader and stuff, and now all that medium's going kind of like the way of the dinosaur, and everything is YouTube videos, podcasts, vlogging, whatever word they wrap it around these days. It's going to this medium, and I appreciate the people like you guys that take the time out to talk to people like myself. You know what I'm saying? And get the word out about us. It's really awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. It's our pleasure. Like like I said, like as dumb and fanboyish as this may sound, I drove down tonight being like, dude, I'm just thrilled that we're talking to Klank tonight. Like that's so awesome.
I appreciate the love and support. Totally. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and something that I tell everybody that's on our show at some point, we have a very open door policy. So like, if you ever like, dude, I want to talk to those guys again, dude, just hit us up. We'll do it.
Dude, I'll tell you what. We have the remix album and stuff coming out. Keep an eye on my posts and stuff. As soon as that comes out, I'd definitely like to do that. Pat and I have a synth pop project called Synth Pop Lullaby, which is coming out. The two guys that I work with here, like the one guy, he was in a band called Unveiled. I'm working on a whole new different musical project with him. So we're hoping like this year there's going to be an influx of stuff, and I got the gift of gab. I like to talk, so and anytime you just want to shoot the breeze or whatever, random shoot the crap or whatever, I'm always down.
Yeah, I'll for sure do that.
Sweet. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Talk to you later,
take
man.
care, man.
All right, thanks.
Later. Bye-bye.
All right, bye. "90 minutes later."
Wow, dude. I'm going to be the first to say it. Fucking Klank.
Klank, dude. Love that guy.
Big thank you to that guy.
Absolutely. And yeah, that was a really fun interview to do, man. And it's the most fun I've had in a long time, for sure. So obviously, huge shout outs to Klank for this super episode that we did. But one thing that we like to do at the end of every episode is we like to talk about our album of the week. What have we been listening to the most? So I'm going to start with Jeff.
I think I already said mine. Rise.
Yeah, you did.
By Klank. That's my album of the week.
All right. For mine, it's New World Shadows by Omnium Gatherum.
Ooh.
Dan, what about you?
I have been listening to a lot of Klank, but also a lot of Circle of Dust because we're doing them next week. So mine is Circle of Dust, Brainchild.
It is Industrial December on discussmetal.com, so everybody needs to stay on track and enjoy yourself some industrial heavy metal. And on that note, this has been episode 41 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at Discuss Metal. Subscribe to our podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts, including Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher. Visit discussmetal.com for all things discography discussion, and please send questions and comments to danandjoeshow@gmail.com. If you are not a patron, you can become one at patreon.com/discussmetal. We have some sweet perks. Big thank you goes out from all of us to Klank Diolosa.
Dude, it was super fun. This is not the last you're going to hear from us.